There's a strange pattern that keeps repeating in the lives of people who think deeply. At some point, quietly and without any announcement, they start disappearing. Not from the world, not from their responsibilities, but from people, from gatherings, from group chats that used to feel exciting, from conversations that used to feel necessary. And everyone around them notices, but almost no one understands why. It usually starts small. A missed invitation here, a phone left on silent there, a message left on read, not out of rudeness, but because there was simply nothing left inside to give in that moment. And slowly, over weeks and months, the pattern becomes visible. The person who used to show up for everything is suddenly nowhere to be found. People around them build their own theories. Maybe they got arrogant. Maybe success changed them. Maybe they just stopped caring. But if you actually sit with someone going through this, you find something completely different happening beneath the surface. It isn't coldness, it's exhaustion. A very specific kind of exhaustion that comes from spending years understanding people faster than people understand themselves. Intelligent people, especially the emotionally perceptive ones, carry a quiet burden most others don't notice. They see the argument before it happens. They sense the tension in a room before anyone says a word. They notice when a friend is pretending to be fine, when a conversation is polite on the surface but hollow underneath, when a relationship has already ended emotionally long before it ends officially. This kind of awareness sounds like a gift, and in some ways it is. But it is also incredibly tiring because you cannot switch it off. You start reading the room, even when you just wanted to enjoy the room. Over time, something shifts. The very thing that used to bring comfort, being around people, starts to feel like a performance. Not because the person has grown cold, but because they've grown tired of translating themselves into a version others find easier to relate to. Simplifying complex thoughts so they don't sound distant. Softening opinions so they don't create friction. Smiling through conversations that feel repetitive or shallow, just to keep the peace. Slowly, this constant self-editing becomes heavier than being alone. And here's the part that most people miss. Withdrawing from people isn't always a sign of arrogance or superiority. Often, it's a sign of emotional depletion. When someone has spent years being the one who listens, who understands, who holds space for everyone else's problems, there comes a point where their own inner world becomes too loud to ignore. And instead of forcing themselves to keep performing connection, they choose silence. Not because they don't value people, but because they finally value their own peace enough to protect it. There's also something deeper happening, something almost invisible. As people grow intellectually and emotionally, their circle doesn't just shrink, it recalibrates. Conversations that once felt exciting start to feel surface level. Friendships that once felt easy start to feel like effort without depth. This isn't judgment. It's simply outgrowing certain patterns of connection, the way you outgrow certain patterns of thinking. And when that happens, disappearing isn't a rejection of others. It's a redirection toward oneself. This kind of quiet withdrawal often gets mistaken for depression, or coldness, or even superiority. But if you actually listen to people who go through it, you find something far more human. A desire to stop explaining themselves, a need to think without being interrupted, a longing to feel understood without having to translate every emotion into simpler language. Just to be accepted. In a world that constantly demands performance, Disappearing becomes their only form of honesty, and maybe that's the real lesson hidden in this pattern. Not everyone who goes quiet is broken. Some people go quiet because they are finally listening to themselves after years of listening to everyone else. Their absence isn't punishment, it's protection. A boundary drawn not out of anger but out of self-respect. So if someone intelligent and thoughtful suddenly steps back from your life, don't rush to take it personally. Sometimes the most self-aware people aren't pulling away from the world. They're simply making room to hear their own thoughts again. Without noise, without performance, and without apology. If this made you pause and think of someone, or maybe even yourself, that's exactly the kind of reflection this channel is built for. Subscribe if you want more of these honest conversations about the mind and human behavior. And tell me in the comments, have you ever felt this pull to disappear, even from the people you love?